Hello, Daniel Bayer from Awards Watch.
What's up, Dan? I like the background.
Thank you, Taylor. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
I
I
like to
just
show
watched,
where I might rather be today.
yeah, I just watched Interstellar again, and it's just the best movie ever,
Oh, so beautiful.
right?
So beautiful. I love it. It's funny that you start by mentioning that though, because I was going to ask you about, there's a very important scene in this movie where your character, Alex Claremont Diaz, admits that he has never seen In the Mood for Love. So I have to know, before we go any further, had you seen In the Mood for Love prior to making this film?
I have. I saw In the Mood for Love. I mean, I think I saw it. My friend Steven, it's his favorite movie, and he was like, "What do you mean you haven't seen this movie?" And I said, "I haven't seen this movie." And so finally, I watched it. Stephen Pyatt, he's a director, writer, and I said, "Okay, I need to watch it," and I just fell in love with it. And then I filmed the red white, and that was one of the lines in there. And I was like, "It's nice to have context, right?"
hmm No, absolutely. And of course, Prince Henry makes the entirely appropriate reaction that it is the swooniest film ever made.
The
Uh,
swooniest. And what does Alex say? Like, is swooniest? Is that even a word?
a
And what?
word, yeah. Which, like, after seeing that film, it absolutely is.
Oh,
You've spoken in other interviews about how the film is a very collaborative process between you, writer-director Matthew López, and your other co-stars, especially Nicholas Galitzine, who plays Henry. And I'm wondering how you found the difference between this collaboration and your work on other projects.
that's a good question. I think going into this project, we knew the responsibility we had, and there was already a beloved fan base for the book, and so it was kind of like all hands on deck, no time for funny business, and like let's get into this and make sure that we do the best possible film we can. And I think with this project, we had to spend 2 weeks rehearsing the scenes, going, chatting over with them throughout the film of like the next 3 months that we were in London. And it just really felt like we were all on the same page. And Matthew was so open because, he adapted the book. And so then he gets the actors who are the vessels for the words, we are able to kind of give our point of views as the characters and the thoughts that these characters are having and how it would really maybe happen in that scene. And I loved it about Matthew is he would always give us a take if we wanted it. Like, can I please have one more? I remember I was like, I think it was like my first, maybe second time working with Uma, and it was oh my gosh, what's the big dinner? The White House Correspondents' Dinner, maybe?
Yeah, yeah.
And so we have this big scene, and Sharon, who plays the prime minister, and Uma Thurman, who plays my mother and the president, have a scene with us. And I'm I we're like getting ready and walking up, and I see them finish, go back to the monitor and watch the rest of the scene between me and Nick. And I'm nervous because Uma Thurman's watching my performance right now, right? And then Sharon, and like, I mean, Sharon is a huge West End actress, and Uma obviously is a major actress. And so Ben, our first AD, raps Sharon. He goes, "That's a rap on Uma, that's a rap on Sharon. All right, get out of here." And I run to Matthew and I'm like, "Hey, I know you said I can ask for another take, and I really need another take. I know I can do this better." And he's like, "All right, baby, let's do it." So then he's like, "All right, you're not wrapped, Uma. You're not wrapped. Sharon, let's do it one more time." And afterward, when we finished, he said, "It's like, thank you so much for asking for that extra take because that's exactly what I wanted, and I'm glad that you were able to know that you weren't there." So, it was stuff like that.
Incredible. I love it. And you both come from the theater background
Yeah,
as opposed to film. And I find that sort of collaboration is really endemic to theater because the rehearsal process is built into, that process. And with film, you generally don't get as much rehearsal time. Did you find that rehearsal time on this really helped you?
totally, totally. like with previous films I've done, I've had another director from the theater, Vince Marcello, and he also loves the rehearsal process, just because he's also the writer, just how Matthew's writer and director. So you kind of get to hear it on its feet, and then take it back in the evening, write it, rewrites, and then bring us new material in the morning. And so it kind of did feel very theater-like. And Matthew would come back with new line changes, and like I felt like this and this, and let's change this and let's try this out. And so he was so open to it, and that was, I think that was the best. So you didn't feel locked into the lines, and I think that was the best thing about rehearsals, that you got to have different thoughts as he was writing you new material, and then that got you into the character a bit more, and then you were able to give your 2 cents on it and go, what about this? And he's like, oh, I love that. Let's try it. And he would get excited. And me and Nick were always just like, oh, let's try it. Let's try it. Why not? Like, we have time, like we got some time. Let's do it.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's so good to hear. You spoke a little bit about how going into the film, you knew that the film had this fan base and, from the book. And I'm wondering, there are so many instances now of, very popular books or shows or other things, comic strips, etc., being adapted to big screen, and knowing that you people have these expectations. How does that affect you as an actor going into play a role like this?
Hmm. How does it affect me? Um, I think at some point in production, hopefully before you begin principal photography, you can sort of throw away what you knew about the book and go into the script, because at the end of the day, the script is Bible. And I think Matthew did such a great job at adapting the book and keeping the heart and the love story, which is why I think people fell so hard for this book and the movie. And so I know that when I start my production company, I'm going to be so mindful of honoring the fans and what they loved about the book and the author, and then try to make an equally great film like Red White.
And so, okay, your own production company, what type of stories do you want to tell with a production company?
I think I said this in the panel last night. I love that Alex is a blue collar kid in an extraordinary circumstance. And I think for me, I'm also, a blue collar kid in an extraordinary circumstance in Los Angeles, growing up in an auto body shop. That's where my parents had them when I grew up. And being out here is so different from Southside Chicago. And, I just feel like, Latins in mainstream media continue to be dramatically underrepresented. And like 19% of the United States is Latin, but it's not representative in TV film. I think it's 10% or less on the acting side and 5% or less on like the showrunner and director side. And it's crazy because Latin-led shows are some of the most watched globally on streamers. And it's it just it's disappointing to see that like in the last, I don't know, 6 to 8 years, the US Latin media representation carried um like a clear trend toward it, like didn't have a clear trend toward improvement. And so I really want to dig my heels into the ground and make sure that the Latin representation is throughout Hollywood and does represent that 19%, that we are in the United States.
That's fantastic. Congratulations on all
Yeah.
that. It is interesting that you bring that up, because I was going to ask, as much of this film is a lovely, enjoyable queer romantic comedy, it also doubles as a story of the start of Alex's political career, in part by registering 1 million new voters for his mother, and about the political power of being true to yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel like right now, with so many people of all ages becoming disillusioned by the state of politics in
Yeah.
this country, around the world, you know, playing this kind of character, what would you say to people who are feeling this way about the importance of getting involved?
Oh my gosh, I think we are in a time where we need to get involved. And I think it's I just read this the other day. I don't want to get it wrong, but I think it said 34.5 million Latin people will be eligible to vote this year. And they're the largest share of non-white voters in the United States. And so just to see that there is so much power in the Latin hands in the United States. It's also, I mean, side note, if you look at the GDP of the Latin people in the United States, it's fifth in the world, like more than
Wow.
United Kingdom, more than India. And so the power is in the youth. I think there are more 11-year-olds in the Latin population in the United States now. And so just the future is so bright, I think, for the Latin community. And so taking on this project, yeah, it was multiple issues that we were dealing with. And it's amazing to have, Clifton Collins Jr., who plays my dad, and also just my mestizo background. It's cool to see that on TV, having this mestizo um, character in this family.
Totally. I know. We're coming up on the end of our time together, but I
Oh,
had
oh,
I
no.
had to ask, because you were also in a rather sexy role on Scandal earlier in the 2010s. And in the intervening years, there's been a lot of discussion about sex on screen by both the audience and the actors who participate in it. And I'm wondering, what do you think is the key to a good sex scene for both the actors and for the audience?
I guess I'll say I think what's really interesting is that our film got an R rating. And
Yes, it did for some reason.
yeah, and I think, and that was kind of disappointing to me because I felt like an R rating limits the amount of people that will watch it. But I know that on a streaming
Mhm.
platform, anybody can kind of watch anything as long as you have the password or no parental controls, which I guess is a good thing. I
Whoopsie.
took passwords when I was a kid. And so seeing that we got that R rating, whereas in the United States you can have you can point blank shoot somebody on screen and you get a
Yeah,
PG-13 rating. And so I
yeah,
feel like we kind of in the United States, um, I don't want to say kind of not demonize or vilify, but don't look too highly upon sex in cinema, whereas Europeans, it's so normal. And here,
yeah.
we kind of rely heavily on gun violence, and like that's our form of entertainment, and that gets a lesser rating. So um, that was it was a tough pill to swallow when we got that rating. And so for I would say like sex scenes are tough. Like I was in a project called Minx, and which is a very sexy show, and
Yes. Very
and
memorable.
very memorable. And I think the biggest thing is just safety for all the actors on set because I've had friends or just fans ask me, "What's it like to kiss Joey King? What's it like to do this with Nicholas?" I'm like, it's a job. Like it's seriously a job. It's like a choreographed dance, and as long as both actors are trusting one another, that's going to get the best result. And so I'm really grateful that we had Robbie Taylor Hunt, who was our coordinator on set, and like our closed sets were so close. Like nobody was on screen, nobody was able to see these images or video before they were sent, or before like they were on screen. Like they were like in a vault, and only like a few people had access to them. So I'm very grateful that Amazon like dealt with those moments in such a like high security way.
It's wonderful to hear. And right before I let you go, I have to ask, what was it like underneath all that cake?
Well, okay, hold on, transparency. The cake itself was probably 8 feet tall, but it was all kind of like a rubber. So it moved and
Oh,
as if it was real cake. So then they did this great hydraulic system when I hit it, and then the cake would slid off and fell down. So that was one day of filming.
mhm.
Second day of filming was us kind of doing that again, but then they got these giant sheet cakes and then they just threw them down on us as if, the cake was falling on us. So it was a little movie magic, but it was incredible.
Yeah.
We smelled like cream for the next 2 days. We found stuff in our ears and over the next
Oh
week,
my
I would say.
gosh.
And it's just such a memorable moment and such a big set piece of the book that I'm so happy that we were able to bring it to life as well. Hopefully, even better in the film.
Well, it's certainly a lot of fun to watch, and it sounds like it was also a lot of fun to shoot.
Yeah,
So,
it was. I mean, oh my gosh, that location in the city of London, it felt like you were royal. Like it felt like you were in some kind of um you're at Versailles or you were in Kensington Palace. Like it was awesome.
I bet. Well, Taylor, thank you so much again.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Nice
All
to
right.
meet you.
Nice to meet you as well, and everyone have a great rest of your day.